Good morning, how are we? Kerry Waring here, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm a spiritual leader and a mentor in the Divine Feminine with a mediumship practice of over 20 years. I'm currently sharing a series of videos entitled Life After Loss. These are my diary videos, I guess, helping me process a recent grief experience where I and my children lost their dad. He was my former husband. And I'm just sort of, I guess, processing my thoughts, but also really turning it around and sharing so that other people can benefit and it might help people shift through their own grief in some form. Because as I've said in the first video, it's not my first rodeo with grief. I've been here before. I've had a couple of really significant losses in my life. And it is something that I do from an empowered position. So I want to share that with you. And in today's video, I want to talk about World Suicide Prevention Day. And this is really something that's really personal for me. I am a survivor of suicide. My brother took his own life in 1995, which was my first major grief experience and the catalyst for my spiritual awakening. So really, I want to share with you a real personal story about World Suicide Prevention Day. And this occurred back in 2012, so about 7 years ago. And this was 12 years after my brother's passing. And grief is one of those things that you sort of like adjust, you integrate it into your being, into your life, and you go along, and then you sort of find that at times it just rears its emotional head for you, and this happened for me in 2012. So I had been in an okay place, and then in 2012 I started really sort of feeling grief-stricken a little bit again. And I was really questioning all my some of my beliefs at the time, I think, if I can recall. Anyway, I decided to go to the World Suicide Prevention Seminar, which was local, run where I live. We have Lifeline headquarters in our jurisdiction, in our area, in our local area. And one of the things that I must say is, while we still have a long way to go with help for mental health issues, for emotional trauma, we have also come a long way. Back in 1995, when my brother committed suicide, in the whole of the Sydney Basin, there was one suicide survivors support group. One. It was in Chatswood, 2 hours from where I lived. There was nothing online. There was no helplines. There was none of those things. I had to seek counselling through the Sydney City Mission, but it was general grief counselling. It was not the kind of, and suicide, when you're affected by suicide, is a very specific kind of grief. So the help that I got back then had a lot to be desired. There was huge holes. So these days, 25 years later, or however long it is, we have so many more resources available for people. The help is there if you seek it out, if you need it with your grief. There are forums online. There are people talking about it. The awareness is so much more prevalent for us. And I acknowledge that we've still got a long way to go, but I also acknowledge that we have come a long way. So firstly, I just wanted to share that. Anyway, so I went to the seminar. And as I walked into the seminar, one of the ushers, you know, they had people on the door, you know, obviously all well aware that everyone that was coming had been affected by suicide in some way. And I was going on my own. So I had one of these ushers come up, and really they check in with you. You know, they introduce themselves. They really talk. They're very in the space of knowing that you're hurting. So they're well aware of that. And just in that conversation, this lady sort of said to me, I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that he chose to do that. Now that phrase, when she said it, was like a major kick in the guts for me. And because what I had done with my beliefs and stepping into my spirituality was I had justified it in some way. And by that I mean I had turned around and sort of gone, you know, well, if it wasn't suicide, it would have been something else. It was destiny, you know. He might have had an illness or a car accident. That's when he was meant to die. That's what I had led myself to believe for 12 years. And I do think that in the spiritual community, we have a habit of adjusting our beliefs or creating a set of beliefs in some way, really to help us ease pain, to help us accept the pain in some way. And that's absolutely what I did for those 12 years. So when she said that for me, and it really kicked me in the guts that it was something that he chose to do. And yes, it was. What I accept and know now is that the spirit, that part of you that is aligned with your destiny, never seeks to harm. It never seeks to harm another. It never seeks to harm yourself. So the pain that he was experiencing was just too much, and his only way out was to leave. And that was the healing that he needed at that time. Yes, it creates a whole gamut of consequences for others. But then it comes down to what I chose to do with that pain, what I chose to do with it. And I chose to step into my spirituality. I chose to use that for the benefit of myself and others. I chose very quickly in my grief back then. I had the need to help other people. And what I know that is a result of when you actually do make a connection to the soul for the first time. The essence of being of service to humanity is something that rises to the surface. So I wanted to share that story with you. And it goes on, actually. I've just remembered there's a little more to the story. So that was the first kick in the guts of the day. Anyway, I sat through the conference and I really, really did enjoy it. I heard some really great things from the speakers and the people that were working at Lifeline at the time. And then in the evening, after dinner, they had a smaller gathering where you could go for coffee and just share about your loved one. So I decided to do that too. It wasn't so much a seminar or a conference this time. It was actually like a gathering in just a smaller room. And so I went along to that. And what they had at the front of the room was like a tree. It didn't have leaves on it, but it was, you know, branches and things. And they had like all these little white doves. And as part of the ceremony, what they did was have asked you to write the name of your loved one on the dove and hanging it on the tree. And I found that really, really difficult to do. I resisted. But again, what had happened was they're very well aware that you're grieving and that they were compassionate and that, you know, they had someone sitting with me and helping me out and helping me achieve that. So because what it meant for me in that resistance was that if I put his name on that tree, he was like everyone else in the room. I had to accept that he had committed suicide, and that was 12 years after he had passed. So I just wanted to share with you what World Suicide Prevention Day means for me. That's what it means for me. And so for those of you that have been affected by suicide, it is, as much as it's a choice, and it's a choice out of pain, know that there is healing in that for them. And if I share with you, in all the years, in the 24, 25 years, I've had regular contact from my brother. He actually used to be part of my teaching team before that day, before that World Suicide Prevention Day. When I taught mediumship, he was part of that. He would connect and teach others about mediumship. He has always absolutely had my back. He, if I'm heading into a difficult time, especially around my relationships or anything like that, he would absolutely give me a heads up. He's been relatively quiet these last few months. Those heads up have actually come from my spirit guides, not my brother. But, and as I say that, I actually see him clairvoyantly just in the background waving, letting me know that he is actually around. It's just not, it's just not his job right now, but he's still there. He's still part of the team. It just hasn't been his job to be of service to me with this current grief journey. So who knows how all that works as to why, which part of your spirit team is chosen to step forward and guide you through whatever journey it is. But in this instance, it's not been my brother. But saying that, he's still there, he's still part of it. And so I know that for him personally, for his journey, that the continuation of his soul continues, and that there has been much healing for him. And as I've healed, so has he, you know, and as I've healed and been able to bring that through, and that's rippled through, so has my mum, you know, in small ways, but, you know, we've been able to move through that together. And I just wanted to share that suicide grief has its own uniqueness about it, I guess is the way to explain it, because it does have that thing of choice. And I know from the spirit side of life, when I've had conversations with my brother about suicide, there was one really specific time, and this goes back many years, where he sort of said to me, I was questioning him about the readings that I was doing at the time. I was having a lot of suicide connections coming through, and people coming to me for that kind of connection. And I sort of was asking him about that. And he shared with me that when someone does suicide, there is a duty that the soul feels and the soul needs. It's like they've got to come back and take responsibility on some level. So at some point, your loved one needs to come back and take responsibility for, I guess, the hurt that they've created, the grief that they've created, because it was a choice, and that there are consequences for that, that there is a responsibility on their part to come and ease that pain. So when they have opportunities to do that through a medium, they will. I'm sure that there are other ways that they come through and help ease that pain, whether it's just being with the family, sending lots of love and helping from that way and letting people feel their presence. You know, it's doing things like being with others that are feeling, that are depressed, feeling that are struggling, that may have suicidal thoughts or tendencies. I know my brother has done that over the years for others, that he will be with them to help guide them through and keep them safe and guide them to healing. So sometimes they do that kind of work. But ultimately, yeah, you know, if you seek a medium, your loved one may not come through straight up. You know, I've had one client who had lost 2 loved ones to suicide, and one of them would come through quite regularly. The other one, it took 8 years. So there's no knowing when the timing is right, and largely sometimes that's got to do with you and your grief and what you're ready for. But know at some point that they will come to you, that they will share a little bit about their pain and take responsibility and help you to understand a little bit more about where they were coming from. They will, with the right medium, come through and give you as many of the answers as they can. So know that, because I guess I just know that, you know, my brother from the spirit side of life has shared with me those sort of understandings. So, and now I'm sharing them with you. So yes, World Suicide Prevention Day today, which means let's talk about it, you know, today. And then on Thursday is Are You Okay Day. So I'm going to be asking you early, you know, share with me, are you okay? Here we're having the grief conversation. So let me know if you're grieving. Let me know, are you okay? Let me know if you're not, you know, so that we can just be supportive of one another. That's what this page is here for, from time to time. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you, and I want to thank you for listening, and until next time, God bless.